150 years, working people have combined to defend their rights in the workplace. But in the last 20 years, the proportion of workers who belong to unions has declined drastically. In the United States, only 20% of workers are now unionized, and unions are losing 3 out of every 4 votes held for certification of new locals. Today, union-busting methods have changed. Most employers now hire a battery of lawyers, psychologists, and consultants to advise them on how to keep their plants and offices union-free.
People have a right under the federal law to be union-free. The law gives people the right to be union-free. All we want to do is operate in such a way that people are encouraged to exercise that right. Now, we may have to fight a campaign. The best
Charles Hughes of Dallas, Texas, is a consultant who advises managers of some of the largest corporations in Canada and the United States on how to avoid having unions.
If we ever lose an election with the union, then we deserve it. And that's what that line is on the top of that study guide. Any management gets a union deserves it, and the rest of the quote is, you get the one you deserve. So that's the kind of philosophy we want to work on. And it does work because there's such a strong move in this direction that it's unbelievable, to the point now, as most of you know, that over 80% of the working population in the United States is union-free.
This seminar is sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce in Greenville, South Carolina, a medium-sized southern city where the policy of keeping out the union has been developed almost to a fine art. The whole spectrum of anti-union tactics is employed in Greenville. Even the city government and community organizations work to keep out unions, going so far as to discourage corporations whose workers are unionized from building plants in the city. As a result, only 3% of the city's workers are unionized. Mike Russell is a member of Southerners for Economic Justice.
In Greenville, we have, in addition to individual companies that are fighting unions, we have the Chamber of Commerce, which has a really unique program in this community. Instead of what's normally called union busting or consulting or decertification procedures, they set up a thing called preventive labor relations. And they go around to companies whose business practices look like they're going to lead towards unionization, and they say, you need to stop them now. So you have the Chamber, which is kind of the union of all the businesses, coming together to keep unions out and to set up the conditions so that unions can't get a foothold of sympathy among working people.
The real move of the recent past and the future is the long-range preventative maintenance model.
If a company can appear to meet the needs of its employees, they will be less inclined to organize. In his seminar, Hughes gives company managers a carefully worked-out psychology for forestalling discontent in the workplace.
So what we want to do, though, is build an educational model with people and make the proposition that we can be extremely open about everything that we're doing with people, and we can ask them what they're thinking about what we're doing and fix it if it needs fixing before an organizer shows up. And so when they do, the majority of people say, hell, I don't need it. Just don't need it. So that's the reason the title on the program, or the title on the books, is we're going to make the union unnecessary.
Throughout the last 100 years, North American workers fought bitter struggles to establish the union movement as an accepted part of the social fabric. Unions sought better wages, shorter hours, improved working and living conditions. They came into being to protect the interests of workers, and employers often met their challenge by using force to deny their workers' demands. This violence eventually became counterproductive, tending to reinforce the workers' solidarity. More recent incidents, such as the attack on striking Robin Hood workers in Montreal in 1977, led to the passing of anti-scab legislation, unwelcome to employers. So today, many companies have put away the blackjacks and in their opposition to unions have adopted more subtle methods.
The union-free philosophy that you're seeing so much of today doesn't really differ all that much from traditional anti-union tactics. They've changed the technique some, but they haven't changed the intent. What you have now, what you used to have in the past was just people walking up and threatening people. And you had gross threats of getting thrown out of the community, getting thrown out of your place, being blacklisted. They're all still there underneath. I mean, you have the process of setting up a union-free environment, and that takes a certain kind of threat building and promises of retaliation and promises of retribution. And then you get to the point where you are in a place like Greenville, where you're just talking about maintaining a union-free environment. And that's when you have the ability to move into the field of using these various psychological tools.
If we want to influence somebody's ideas, you have to get to them before they already have an opinion about it. Get that positive statement in there, and that forms an impression. Then when somebody else like the union comes along and says the reverse of what we've been saying, the union's going to have to say, yeah, but. If you wait until the union comes in and really get you up against the wall before you start communicating about this whole subject, then you have to play yes, but. Yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. And we're too late. So the key is, and very important step in being union-free, is get out there first.
You think you're playing a union organizing game when you're really fighting a psychological war. So you're in there with union organizer and they're in there with psychologists. And you're dealing through a third party.
John McDonald led a drive by the United Rubber Workers Union to organize a Michelin tire plant in Nova Scotia. Michelin, a huge French company with North American headquarters in Greenville, is in the vanguard of the union-free movement. From the day that a worker joins the company, Michelin applies an aggressive program designed to ensure that their workers will never organize. Workers with pro-union tendencies are quickly isolated, and other employees are pressured continually by supervisors to condition them against unions.
If you have an opinion that doesn't agree with their opinion, they'll do what they can to cause you to change it. Now, they don't come up to you and say, we don't like that. But they come up and say, isn't this good, and isn't that good, and isn't this good, therefore, what we're saying is right, therefore you can't be right. And they lead you to this. They'll do this repeatedly until eventually you begin to believe it. It isn't a case where you're surrendering to them. You become just like them. You start to think like them after a while. If you want to stay there, if you want to continue working there, you have to learn to start second-guessing them. You have to say, well, what do they want me to say now? What would they like me to say? If I say this, I'm going to be in trouble, so why should I say this? What would they like me to say? And you say that. People get in the habit of doing that, and after a while, they begin to think that way.
In Nova Scotia, Michelin has shown that a determined non-union company can call on an armory of weapons against unionization. When the organizing drive came to a vote, Michelin threatened to withdraw from the province unless a law was passed nullifying the vote. Despite protests, the Nova Scotia government obeyed the company and passed a law which killed off the union drive. The aggressive anti-union stance adopted by Michelin has had such an impact on the rubber industry that unionization among rubber workers has fallen from 100% to 40% in the last 15 years.
You're going to lose what you got if something doesn't happen pretty damn quick. It's been going on for 10 years, and you can count your losses. You can count the contracts where you had to fight like hell to get anything, because Michelin's there, and Michelin's growing, and Michelin's taking a bigger chunk of the market, and whatever you're going to get from here on out, you're going to not get anything. You're going to fight like hell to keep what you got, because of Michelin. What I'm saying, essentially, is that unless the CLC and the AFL-CIO in North America are going to hire psychologists and industrial consultants, they're not going to beat these people at their game. The people that you're dealing with, the people you're competing with for the minds of the public are professionals at what they're doing.
How do you understand it, how to administer, how to code it, how to read the damn reports, how to do a feedback. And to do it, you just follow the bouncing ball. Plug in tape, follow bouncing ball, do it yourself. And administer the darn thing. And we'll give the results to you in 2 weeks. Or less if you've got a problem. Now, if you got an organizing drive, we'll do it in a couple of days.
Hughes employee attitude surveys are a means of gathering psychological intelligence from employees, consequently enabling a company to head off a union organizing drive.
Darn data is not to sit around and cogitate about it. It's to go out and ask the people what the hell they're saying that's good and not so good. Find out what the problems are, fix what can be fixed, keep the thing rolling, and it never stops. The survey, statistics, feedback, problem solving, how can you get yourself in trouble? We know what people are thinking. We ask them why they feel that way, ask them what needs to be done about it, what could make it better, and you just cannot get a union that way. Unions see this as subversive. Unions don't like you to do attitude surveys. Why? Because they know it'll blow them completely out. Because it has enough predictability in advance of problems before the union occurs to even get yourself to the point where it would have to bomb out.
So far, the union movement has not decided how best to adjust to Hughes' methods. A company can openly and every day influence its workers against unions. But to avoid reprisals against the worker, the union must work in secret. Traditionally, the organizer visits a worker's home to persuade him to sign a union card. Nowadays, his job is tougher than ever, because the worker may already have been conditioned against the union by the company.
That's the card from the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, and this is where you have to sign.
All three places?
That's right.
The exit marks.
That's right, and it gives the authority for the union to negotiate for you for wages and hours of work.
Signing this card is very easy, but see, I'm afraid of my job. Got a house to pay, got kids to support. It's not that easy, just signing.
Once you sign that card will go to the board and will be kept secret. And if something does happen to you, you phone us up. Right now, there is no protection, and something could happen to you tomorrow. There's no union there, or you
I know what you mean,
a card. There's nothing we can do. The only
Yeah.
time we can help you out is once you become a member of our union.
Well, he was afraid to sign the card because he was thinking that probably somebody might find out, especially the company, and he might lose his job. The other thing was also that 5 people have been laid off by this company, and without having no union, he might be the next one that's going to be laid off. Because what's been happening now is that the company is suspicious of anybody who is joining the union, and for that reason they're trying to get a lot of people very scared, and they're offering them benefits and new wages for the purpose of not getting the workers to join the union.
We got to get the message in, all of us as an employee here. Me, you, we're all employees. My job is to manage, your job is to do these other things. And keep that line coming. Check your handbooks when you get back. Is it written we, they? You open some of them, it says, attention all plant employees, signed the management. The following rules are now in effect. Whoa, whoa! What the hell kind of mentality is this? You see it, the we's park in the front of the building, huh? The they's park in the back of the building. The we's all go out and have an hour and a half lunch. The they's are all over here. The we's all dressed in Class A uniform, the they's dressed some other way. It just goes over and over and over and constantly reinforcing the we, they. So we just got to knock off these things. Now, where's the future of the unions? Office clerical. There's a lot of plants right now.
The enormous increase in service employment in North America has brought millions of women into the workforce. And men like Charles Hughes are thinking ahead about how to ensure that they stay unorganized.
Now, most of the people in the shop in most companies are still male. Most of the people in the office in most companies are female. And the future of unionization is unions dominated by women in the office or white collar. Because they've had it with a significant disparity in pay, with no more skill in the shop than in the office. We have that backlash thing, and it is breaking all over the place. I don't know whether anybody's had any union activity in the office clerical, has he? You have? Yeah. Pay backlash, part of the thing. Promotional opportunities, probably the other one.
I think in all those industries where mostly women work, the employers are really worried. If I were to get the average wage in BC, that would mean almost doubling my salary, and that's after 15 years experience at what I do. And they're making a lot of money off the fact that women are underpaid, and they're not going to let it go easily, that's for sure.
I'd been a teller for about a year, and they hired this young man who was about 26-year-old, hired him. He was hired at least double what I was making, and he was hired as a management trainee, and I had to train him to do my job for a couple of months. And in about 6 or 7 months, he was my supervisor. And, I mean, basically, it's all men who are promoted.
Canadian banks have successfully used their wealth and power to resist unions, and only a few hundred of their 145,000 employees are unionized. The banks apply many union-proofing techniques. For example, they replace accepted grievance procedures with their own forms of problem-solving, such as an open-door policy, by which employees are encouraged to take grievances directly to management. Employees expecting to be heard as equals, however, are sometimes disappointed.
Our manager talks a lot. I work for the Bank of Commerce. He talks a lot about his open door policy, that you don't need a union in here because the door is always open and you can come here and talk to me about your problems. Anyways, when it came time for my annual merit increase, I got a quite good report from my supervisors and went into my manager, who adds his final report, and he said that he couldn't agree with the report. That is, it was average to above average because my attitude was so poor that he would have to downgrade the report that my supervisors had given me. And the reason my attitude was so poor was because I exploited every opportunity to criticize the wages and benefits of the Bank of Commerce. Right? So I asked him what happened to his open door policy, and he said that constructive criticism was okay. It was destructive criticism that was the problem.
I would for sure never have an employee elected grievance committee. It's a we-they. The theys elect a committee to talk to the we's. And if you keep doing that, you open yourself up to, well, I'm training people third-party transactions, aren't I? The committee becomes a go-between, and some outfits have gotten themselves trained right into a union mentality that way. And then that grievance committee sends a letter in. At the next meeting, they want to bargain about paying benefits, and now where am I? I've got a labor organization I created myself. So I'd be very cautious about any type of elected committees. Some people say, well, that's not very democratic. And the answer is, that's right. A corporation is not a democracy, it's a republic. All right?
Sidney Pascal of Pascal's Hardware, Montreal, is a student of Hughes' methods, and in his relations with his 3,000 employees, has adopted much of Hughes' soothing and conciliatory language.
Claude, ça va? En forme? Ça va.
Well, we had a union for 12 years, and the employees decided to get rid of their union and try and work together with the company.
Oh, it was 2 or 3 years ago that Sid asked me to come up and work with all of his managers, so we put on a seminar very similar to this one. Because at that time, they had a labor union representing the people in a number of their stores. But Sidney's interest was that he didn't need it. He didn't think it was doing anything for the people that he and his managers couldn't do just as well or better. So we kind of worked through a program of things they went out and did, and they're very classy organization, very superior managers, and they're so positive about their people, that the positiveness they had about their people and their willingness to say you don't need the union, that union's gone.
Ça va bien? Good. Hi. Bonjour, ça va bien? Good.
Unions can be abolished by vote of their members, as happened at Pascal's, where 2 unions were spending much of their energies on a jurisdictional dispute. Following decertification, management can make all decisions unfettered by any obligation to negotiate.
We unilaterally decide on what the working conditions are going to be. In other words, I will decide what the salary increases are during the coming year. Obviously, during the course of the year, meeting with the employees informally on my visits to the stores, I'll find out what we're missing or what their needs are. We also study the market. We know what competition is paying, and we, not having a union, have to be a little bit ahead of our competition. And I know that our salaries and our working conditions are substantially ahead of all of our competition. So with a situation like that, it benefits the employees and it benefits the company.
Sure. I'm in favor of improving human relations in the workplace, but not if it's simply a gift from management designed to sucker workers into believing that things are better. And the legal case remains the same, that so long as workers don't have a contract defining the conditions of their employment, management can give them anything. They can come in and they can give them turkey on Monday and pie on Tuesday and fire them on Wednesday if they want to.
Nothing we talked about today or that I do has to do with anything to do anything bad to the people out there. Nothing said today was anti-union, but since we've only had 3 elections, never lost those, and most of the companies we work with never even have organizing drives, that there's a lot of hostility in the press and the union newsletters and so forth toward me, that I'm a union buster. And I'm not busting unions because I rarely work on union organizing drives. Because the companies I work with, we just don't even have that problem.
Despite the claims of the union-free movement to be improving the lives of workers, statistics for the largely union-free state of South Carolina show a rather different picture. The state ranks among the lowest 5 in levels of personal income, illiteracy, and per-pupil spending on education, and has among the highest levels of lung disease and worker disability in North America.
But the thing that is the worst, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that they have such a cautious workman's compensation system. They have a very low rate of workman's compensation insurance, and what they do is they are literally selling the working people as a natural resource to be used up and then cast aside, and insuring companies that they're not going to have to pay to compensate these people when they're injured or hurt on the job. And that's what really angers me the most, because all of these folks have been loyal, hard-working people, people in the Brown Lung Association, people who are sick will work. You'll find people who've worked 50 and 60 years in a place who are retired with no pension, with a breathing problem, or who are injured or whatever, and the day that they're injured, they're out and they're gone. So when you look at all the quantifiable data, it really gives the final lie to the kind of line that Charlie Hughes makes about why we don't need unions, and points to why workers need to organize on their own behalf.
Many workers have come to realize that their employers are using the union-free philosophy to gain the maximum advantage for themselves. So in spite of the pressures to be union-free, which are especially strong on workers in the Sun Belt, tenacious organizing struggles have continued, as depicted in the film Norma Ray.
This is the plant that Norma Ray was based on, better known as Christian Lee. This is the plant when she stood on the table, she wrote a sign and said, the words say union, and all of the other ladies around her stopped the machines off and joined in with her. You know the other part of the story.
Sooner or later, it comes home to everybody that works in these factories that works.
Crystal Lee Sutton is the worker on whom Norma Ray was based.
5 years. It may not take but 3 months, but sooner or later they're going to realize the need for a union. It may even take 20 years or 30 years, like it did at the J.P. Stevens plants in Roanoke Rapids. But if those workers had not wanted a union, they would not have voted yes. If they were not tired of the treatment that J.P. Stevens was giving them, they would have voted no, but they didn't. They voted yes.
But there's a lot of people in Roanoke Rapids who was against the union in 1974, and they're out now as some of our very strong, active members. What really changed their mind was that the company had them believing they was a good company. Anything they could do for them, they'd do it for them. And as time went on, the company let them down. So a lot of them has come in here now and told Cecil now, boy, I'm just now learning this company. I thought they was a good company, but I'm learning them now. And they're very strong union supporters now.
And big companies like J.P. Stevens and other companies don't want unions. They don't care nothing about people like us, but just our labor. They work us for nothing. If they can do it, they're going to do it. We, as one, you have to stand together as a group to fight. You got to be organized. You got to be joined, united together. That's what brings power, is united. If you stand together, you can overcome. One or two, a little group here, a little group there. They don't pay that no mind. or push them out of the way, hire somebody else. But if you're together, they can't afford to let us go because we are the power.